Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Espresso with Matt. I am here with a my friend Patrick McNeal, who's out in California right now. Really excited you're joining me, Patrick. Patrick, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing great, Matt. Happy to be
Uh,
here.
we're thrilled to have you. And I appreciate with the time zone difference, you getting up early and joining us here for a morning chat over coffee. So, Patrick, as we talk every time and Espresso Matt, we start with a basic question. So, what's in the coffee cup today? What are you drinking today?
Well, today I'm pretty basic, but today I'm drinking just Starbucks medium roast
Oh,
blend with a little whipped cream in it. So,
there you
uh,
go.
thing with me is I'm more of a creamer drinker than a coffee connoisseur.
Yeah, the coffee's all about the averages. So I have my a little brand plug here. I'm waiting for my sponsorship, Cafe Bustelo. Little double espresso in there in the big cup there. And I love the fact that you have the branded cup there. That's pretty nice there. Well done.
Yeah,
So Patrick, me and you connected through LinkedIn a few months ago. We've had a few chats and really impressed with the work you're doing and your mission right now, and aligned a lot with what I've done in my career. But for everyone out there, Patrick, just take us through a little bit what crop is, what you do there, what your role is, if you could.
absolutely. Well, I'm a partnerships account executive here at the Crop organization. And what the Crop organization is, it is an organization that offers tech training to formerly incarcerated people who are coming out of prison and trying to re-enter the workforce. We have a philosophy that we don't believe that people who are coming out of incarceration have to be relegated to construction jobs or low-paying jobs. We train people for jobs in tech sales and jobs that are going to pay them a livable wage. There's so much more to the program, but it's a year-long training program, and then we start trying to find them jobs, and we partner with other companies that are willing to hire our graduates and or provide tools or training to our graduates.
What amazing work, Patrick. And it's funny because you and I started talking a little bit about this a few months ago. And to share a little bit of my work history, I worked at a psychiatric hospital for those who don't know, and over my career, we had a lot of individuals work with us who were formerly incarcerated because part of the addiction cycle for so many people is incarceration. And so I always felt very passionate about getting the right people in the right roles and the idea that employment can have second chances, third chances, fourth chances, and be great employees. And so it's amazing work, and you guys do a great job training them. And I'm excited to be doing some mentorship for some of your
Absolutely.
clients the next few
We're
weeks
excited to
too.
have
I'm
you.
excited about that. Tell me a little bit how you kind of got involved in that and what your role is and what you work on every day there.
Well, absolutely. That involves a little bit of my background.
Yeah, let's get
My
into that.
background, growing up, like most people, I finished high school. I went off to college. I wasn't raised rich, so lived in bad neighborhoods, but still managed to get through college and graduate. After I graduated, I started working. I graduated from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Then eventually came back to California, started working. I had some bad habits that got me in trouble with the law, and I wound up being incarcerated myself. Despite the fact that I had a college education, I still made mistakes.
Yeah.
So I ended up being incarcerated myself. Oh, by the way, I left out the part where I was employed as a probation officer at that time. So after I graduated from college, I was employed as a probation officer, but I still made mistakes in my life. I made stupid choices and wound up being incarcerated. Uh, Prior to getting out, I heard about the CROP program, which was a tech training program for formerly incarcerated. I applied while I was still inside, and timing was right when I got out. They were starting their first cohort here in LA. I was accepted into the cohort program. I did the entire program, and I excelled from what they say. I'm not bragging. I excelled from what they say. So at the end of the program, when they start looking for jobs for people, they hired me themselves rather than find a job for me. So currently, they hired me. I'm a partnerships account executive, and my job is to go out and look for companies and individuals and our organizations to partner with us and hire, provide tools, our mentorship to our graduates.
Well, Patrick, what an amazing story, and it's great work you're doing right now, paying it forward now, and you must be so connected to the mission and the purpose there. I love your energy and the way you approach this in a way, and you use the word make mistakes, and those everyone makes mistakes, and over the last few months, I've had a lot of opportunity to talk to a lot of people who are transitioning for lots of reasons. And that idea of what's the future state going to look like, is so
Right.
hard when you're in that moment, whether, you're struggling with being unemployed or addiction or whatever issues people are struggling with. Um, what for you is some of the advice that you're giving, some of the clients you're working with right off the bat, where maybe they don't have much hope or maybe they don't have much idea that they really can make it to the next step.
And that's one thing that's really important for me to relate, and that was important to my psyche, and I would hope I could pass that on to other people, is to not have a limiting attitude about yourself,
Yeah,
to not believe. And that's one thing about crop. And I'm not trying to make this all about crop, but I love the philosophy to tell someone that they don't have to be limited to think that they have nothing's wrong with construction, nothing's wrong with manual labor, nothing's wrong with it at all. But I don't want people who are coming out of incarceration to think that that's all that they are worth, that's all that they can do. So my advice to them, and really anyone, is cut out those limiting beliefs that no matter what your past was, you still have opportunity to make it in this country. As much as the problems that a lot of people say we have, if you have an attitude where you believe you can achieve and you can do it, there's a way and there's a path forward for you. And you don't have to limit yourself to low paying jobs or thinking that you can never make anything of yourself.
and let's talk about that for a second, that pathway forward, because I really agree with that. There's pathways forward, and but the one thing I'm going to say, I think you'll agree with me here: don't do it alone. When people say, we have this perception that America, you can get up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get absolutely, but no one climbs the mountain alone, right? And so one of the things I think that's so important, no matter what situation you're in, is getting out there and networking and finding the helpers. You know, for every person who's out there maybe saying, I would never hire someone who's incarcerated, or, you know, construction's all they should do, right? There's people like you and organizations like Crop and others out there who want to help and find the helpers. And that network of family, friends, strangers that you can meet through networking is so important. How do you kind of weave that in to build that network of positive support to really get people in that next direction? It's so important. So talk about that a little bit, what Crop does with that, what you do with that, and how your network is
Uh,
so important.
Absolutely. But I want to mention a comment on something you said, on the pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And I don't remember where I heard this quote, but I don't want to take credit for it, but I don't remember where it came from. But I heard someone say one time, people want you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But you got to realize some people don't even know what a bootstrap is, or they don't even have any bootstraps. So sometimes people don't even know what they're capable of because they've never been told, or they were never exposed to it. And as far as employers hiring the formerly incarcerated or justice impacted, I would like to say that would any of us have our jobs if the worst thing you ever did in your life was known to your hiring manager? Most of us would not have the jobs we have. So when they're considering fair chance employment, I would like people to keep that in mind. Uh,
Such a great point, and I think getting back to that idea, yeah, I mean, no, everyone who accomplishes great things, it's about what they're doing themselves, but so much about their network, the support, the environments they grew up in, the environments they have. For years I worked in a youth residential program, and I'll just share this quick story. And so these are children who are placed at home for care. And we had this one child who ran away all the time. And, he would run away, break out, run away, break out, everything like that. Really like this kid, but he would I spent a lot of times looking for this kid after he left campus. One time he actually left campus, but didn't leave campus on the roof and was laughing at us because I was walking by. He's like, "Hey, Matt, I'm up here." I'm like, oh, comes back a few years later, he graduates successfully, comes back. You know what his job was? He was a locksmith. And so I'm like, what a great way of taking your talents in a positive direction. And one of the things that I really believe in when we're working with others is what can we find in talent and how we amplify people's talent, And one of the things I learned very early on working in social work, I had a wonderful mentor who talked about these kids you're working with right now, Matt, they have amazing talents. They've been focused on the wrong thing. So change the conversation. Now I would have conversations like, okay, you're here because you're stealing cars. What an amazing skill set. Just let's focus that skill in a different direction. Where's the leadership skill there? How can we focus that in there? And believing in what people are potentially available is so important. And Patrick, I'm glad you brought that up. Um, and I think it's really important that you have agencies like yourself and leaders like yourself to really help bring that forward. Getting back a little bit to that discussion, take me through a little bit what, a person in your program would expect, like how your program works.
Uh, Absolutely. And definitely mentorship and networking are extremely important. I didn't necessarily address that part. So that's kind of what we are. There is help available for people. And I know in California, and I would advise everyone to seek out organizations and assistance in your rehabilitation and in your efforts to get back into the workforce. So at CROP, we have a holistic program where we don't just treat the person as far as we're not just training you for a job. We offer reentry services. We have a paid psychologist on staff, and we also refer people out to other programs. So when they come into our program, number one, there's an application process, and it's pretty strict because there's a lot of investments in the people who we allow into our program. So they go through an interview process, a skills assessment, and then once they're admitted to the program, we have two separate campuses. I like to say campuses, but one in Oakland is a physical campus where we actually have free housing for the people who are accepted into the program. In LA, we do not have a housing component yet, so all the training is virtual. But throughout, the first thing we do in our training is not to start teaching people their skills. The first thing we do is we address leadership, doing the right thing, and making right decisions. So that's the first part of our training. It's not even starting to train them for the job we're training them for. We want to make sure we treat the whole person in our efforts to train them for these jobs so that when they do get placed, that they are in the best position for success. So yeah, so we offer a lot. They also receive $1,000 a month stipend while they train. So we pay them while they train.
You know, it's something that for me, as we talk through this a little bit, society really needs to invest more in reentry, and programs like yourself. I mean, the impact and the investment on this end versus reincarcerating individuals, just on a completely pragmatic cost basis. You know, I am positive that programs like yourself could be supported with less funds than it costs to incarcerate someone. And in some ways, I worked in a program where we had one of the things we tracked was reentry into the system, and we found treatment, therapy, support after graduation really helped reduce, juveniles from committing crimes again and be reincarcerated. And what a better way to treat humans in a society. And so we have a lot to learn. And I'm really glad that you're out there and your programs are out there learning that. And there's some great programs here in New Jersey doing that, but there's still a lot to be done there. Patrick, we'll talk a little bit about some of your journey and some of your journey because well, we've talked several times your energy, your passion you bring to this, and your leadership here. Talk about that development for yourself. What are some important things that you learned to become a leader in this space, and how did you kind of develop your leadership style to be such a great advocate?
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, while incarcerated, I did a lot of work on myself. And I think a lot of us, prior to being incarcerated, I had graduated from college. I had a good job, owned my own home. So I did have a mentality that there's nothing wrong with me. Why am I here? But I had to learn. I had to learn a lot, and we all do. And one of the things I learned, which I've kind of talked about, is to not accept um, any stereotypes or labels that someone tries to put on me. I need to make my own path forward, or with help of mentors and support. Uh, but these are some of the things that have shaped my leadership. There's something about empathy and understanding where people are coming from. It's not about it's not about accepting or advocating for people's wrong decisions, but it's about being able to recognize where someone is coming from and why they are making certain decisions and choices. That's what shaped my leadership style. That's what made me, maybe I used to be a judgmental person, but after doing a lot of work on myself, that's helped shape my leadership style to become a person who's not judgmental. And that's to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes and examine why and how they've made the decisions they've made in their lives. And as a leader, as a person who's tried to help other people, that helps you through so many different life circumstances, not just work, employment, business. It helps everywhere.
Patrick, that sense of empathy and trying to put other people's perspective is so important. Again, going back to my experience working, in a behavioral health center, behaviors could be extreme at times, and it
Absolutely.
was be challenging for team members. And I used to always try to put that in perspective for my team members. I would say, hey, go read the background chart. You know,
Right.
go talk to the kids acting out before the holiday. Well, they're not going on pass. Maybe that's why. Try to have a sense of empathy. Try to understand where they're coming from, and also try to have the faith that the work we're putting in today might not show up for years, you know, not show up for years. And nothing's more satisfying. And I just connected with someone I worked with almost 20 years ago. I'm getting a little old, Patrick, but 20 years ago, I worked with this adult now who reached out to me through a network and said, thank you for all the work you did and believing in me. Has a great career, is doing really well, family of her own right now. And you're like, man, would I have predicted that 20 years ago? I don't know. For me, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that sense of empathy. And empathy from where people are is a leadership trait that we all can have. And you bring it forward in that way, and that self-reflection is so important. Such a great, important message for people to hear, and in all way respects and aspects of it. You know, that we've talked a lot about some of the challenges people face in the job market right now. It's a tough job market, right? And
Absolutely.
one of the things I'm doing a lot of networking out there with HR professionals and other people, and I'm just seeing this lack of compassion, a lack of human touch to the recruitment for lots of people. What would be
Absolutely.
something you'd want to say to recruiters or talent selection people, not just for your population, but for anyone, but really about, you know, the process of finding the next opportunity, what people should look for, how we become talent scouts to find new talent in areas maybe we're not looking for, you know. Any thoughts
Well,
there?
I would say that I think the statistics are, and when we talk about fair chance hiring, because that's kind of my specialty, uh,
Yeah.
it's like 70% of Americans have either been justice impacted themselves or have family members who have been justice impacted. So when we start talking about HR HR professionals and who are looking to expand their talent pools, and where do they look? Imagine if you immediately ruled out 70% of the population, or let's say the people who have actually been justice impacted, which I believe is about 30%
Yeah.
of Americans have been justice impacted in some way. If you rule out 30% of the population, you are killing a humongous talent pool
Yeah.
that could add to your company, your institution, your organization, that could add to it. So
I had one person told me one time, Matt, we shouldn't hire people with mental health issues. I'm like, well, first of all, that's 20% of the population. Second of all, that's illegal. Third of all, some of our best employees are transparent about their struggles and doing an amazing job. So to make these broad scope opinions is so wrong. And I'm glad you bring that back because like the idea that we're not going to look at different talent pools and different opportunities, you know, it really needs to evolve. It's really important. I'm sorry, you had some more to add to that.
Absolutely not. I'm going to add on to what you said because I would say that going back to a statement I made earlier, it's like how many of us would have our jobs if the recruiter knew everything that we'd done in our life, the worst thing we'd done in our life. So whether it's mental health or formerly incarcerated, how many of us out there are walking around with undiagnosed mental issues and the person telling you that they shouldn't hire a person with mental issues may have some themselves that are undiagnosed. And it's kind of goes back to the empathy thing I mentioned about looking in the mirror, looking in the mirror rather than looking out of the window. There's a concept in self-reflection about that. Do you want to look?
I love that. I love that one. I gotta write that one down. What was that one again? Looking at
It's
the
it's you can look in the mirror or you can choose to look out the window. It's a so
yeah,
so when you're considering these people in these talent pools, um, maybe it's good sometimes to think about a little self-reflection and to think about opportunities and chances and to reflect on whether it's mental disability or formerly incarcerated or some other thing that you might discriminate against someone about.
yeah.
HR professionals need to be leaders, empathetic, and be open to considering people from traditionally overlooked talent pools.
Patrick, you know, absolutely support that 100%. And that really needs to be more of a message out there for everyone. And I really appreciate you bringing that message forward. Patrick, right now people might be motivated to help or might be motivated to learn a little bit more what they can do to support these type of causes. What advice would you have for people right now who maybe support crop or they're not in your area to help in these type of to help people get these second chances, to help people who are formerly incarcerated to get those opportunities or people with mental health issues. What advice would you have to get involved?
Well, I mean, there's several different ways to get involved, and I can speak on crop, but I can also I'll speak
Yeah, let's
broadly for people who are in other states who might see this. There are so many organizations out there, I'm sure across this country, and definitely in California where I am, that are involved in this kind of work. Now, most of us are nonprofits. They may be small organizations, but you can find these organizations, and there's so many different ways to get involved. You can volunteer your time. You can find these organizations. You can ask to just volunteer. As that's how we got in contact. And if we don't have someone who's going to donate or hire, we're glad to have volunteers who will come in and mentor people who will offer their services on resume writing, on interviewing techniques. So there's so many different ways to get involved. These HR leaders, they can also influence their leaders, and when they find out about these programs, they can advocate for these programs themselves. It comes so much better from within when an employee who knows this VP or this director that goes there and brings up the program rather than a cold outreach from the organization itself. It goes over so much better. So, volunteering, mentoring, uh, trying to get involved in hiring if you have that capacity, if you have that ability. Look at these untapped talent pools. These organizations, crop organization, we have these people who are trained. They've been vetted and they have complete wraparound services to make sure that they're going to be a success for your company. And these companies and these organizations exist all across the country. But you have to get involved, and you have to be willing that once you've changed your mindset, you help others to change their mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Patrick, out there, if you're a leader and you heard Patrick's words, that is such an important message to get to. And I really appreciate you bringing that forward. Um, human resources is about humans. It's in the word, right? And
Absolutely.
and and you have to be able to engage and work with humans. And Patrick, thank you so much for bringing that message forward and really important. We're gonna get to everyone's favorite time of the day, espresso round, where we're gonna talk a little about some of the espresso questions here.
All
So,
right.
the first question I have over a cup of coffee, in your case, Starbucks with cream.
Yes.
Um, What's the best piece of advice you got over a cup of coffee in your life?
Well, it alludes back to some of the comments I made. The best piece of advice I ever had was by Dr. and coach Mara Taylor, the creator of a program called Getting Out by Going In. And that advice is don't let yourself be defined by your circumstances or your path. There is a tool in this self help group called Claim Responsibility. And the purpose of the tool is not to claim responsibility for your past actions, although we all should, but the purpose of this particular tool is to claim responsibility for your actions moving forward. So no matter what your past, how you've been judged, you can change who you are in an instant. Those mistakes you made 5 minutes ago, you don't ever have to make them again. And so I would ask people, the best advice I got was that don't be defined by your past. Claim responsibility for your future and make that new future that you want.
What great advice, first of all. One, I'll definitely look up that book. And, it gets to the idea of being mindful where you are present and being owner of your current state. And such an important theme. I'm hearing from so many different people, own where you're at, manage that. What great advice. That's amazing. So we had talked a lot about this throughout our conversation today, but piece of advice you want to give a leader over a cup of coffee right now? If you get you're talking to a lot of leaders right now who watch Espresso Map, what's a piece of advice you want to give them over a cup of coffee?
Well, again, that goes back to some of the things that I spoke about. But I would ask that people lead with empathy. And by leading with empathy, again, I'll say that doesn't mean that you've got an employee who's been underperforming and not doing what they're supposed to and taking advantage, that you just forget about that, ignore that. No, but this means leading with empathy means that you lead with empathy with your team, with your customers. And again, you try to understand where people are coming from, why they make the decisions they make. And this is good for not just leading your team, but also for your customers, because many of us are in sales or in sales in some kind of way. We're all selling in some way. But leading with empathy is going to help you in not just your business with your team, it's going to help you with your customers, and it's going to help you in your personal life as well. So leading with empathy is very important.
Patrick, more and more you're seeing that as one of the top skills needed in leadership right now is empathy, and it's something we can have a lot more in the society. Unfortunately, thank you for bringing that message forward. Two more questions. One, if you were able to go back and talk to your younger self over a cup of coffee, what advice are you giving yourself?
Um, I would say be your authentic self. And a little background on that is, I grew up, I'm not going to say, well, in a society or in a culture and also in a home where you were expected to be restricted from doing certain things. Uh, to do well in school was almost like a bad mark against you. You're a nerd. You're a nerd. Hey, our people from either our culture or our neighborhood, we don't do these certain things. We don't go ice skating. We don't go surfing. So being your authentic self, or telling myself to be my authentic self, I wish I would be able to go back in time and tell myself I would have done better in school. Not being my authentic self held me back from where I am today, or stunted it. It took me later to develop before I was able to become my authentic self. So if I could go back, I would give that advice to everyone.
Well, I love
Nerds,
your con.
yes,
Go ahead.
nerds rule the world. That's
I love that. I love your content, man. You're out there getting out there active and enjoying life right now. And God bless you. That's amazing stuff. And you heard it here first. Nerds rule the world. There you go. But Pat, great advice. Last question for the espresso round. Have a cup of coffee anywhere, anytime with anyone. Where you going? Who you doing that with?
Okay, I'm going to cheat on this one a little bit because I have two people. On a personal level, the first one would be with my mother, who passed away prior to my graduating from college. And I would love to sit down. I was still immature at the time she passed away, and I would love to sit down and have a conversation and give her the appreciation that she deserved for all the sacrifices that she made and all the things that I didn't understand being a child or young at the time she passed away, and not knowing and being able to appreciate everything she was, she did, and the struggles she made. So that's number one. I would love to sit down and talk with her. The second one may be a little unpopular, but I guess it depends who it is. But strictly from an intellectual level, I would love to have a coffee conversation with Elon Musk. This is not about it. This is not advocating or railing against his political. That's totally separate. But as far as his innovation and his impact on society, whether it's electric cars, SpaceX, or artificial intelligence, I would love to sit down and talk to him and talk about where he
Yeah,
sees the future of these things going.
that's an amazing combo there. And first of all, I will say this, I am sure your mom is very proud of what you're doing these days. And I'm sure her lessons come out every day. And so you're doing amazing work right now. And I'm really, really honored that you joined me for this conversation and then the opportunity I'm getting to help your organization, even from afar. I'm really looking forward to that. You're doing amazing work here. And we need more people out there advocating and being empathetic like you. Patrick, thank you so much for joining Espresso with Matt. I really appreciate this conversation. There'll be more to come from you, I'm sure. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I just want to say I appreciate you and you creating this platform. And you are one of those leaders that I'm talking about that are paying it forward and opening up people's eyes to many different kinds of opportunities in this world and different ways of thinking about issues. So I appreciate it, and I think your espresso with Matt, it's gonna keep blowing up and expanding.
Well, thank you so much. And, there's just a lot of really cool stories out there, and you're one of them. So I really appreciate it. Well, everyone get out there and take a look at Patrick, follow him on LinkedIn, take a look at Crop, support where you can. Really appreciate the time out there. Till next cup, everyone. Talk to you all soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt.